Learn market risk control. Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. This is a very appropriate topic for today. This is Sunday. The markets will be open again tomorrow. We all know what's been going on in the stock market. I want to point something out. What's been going on in the stock market is confined to that market, not really having an impact in real estate on the real estate market. The bond market effect is minimal. There are different markets for assets. Keep that in mind. I'm going to walk you through this video and give you some advice on how to control risk in a market, not just the stock market. I mean, the stock market is important right now because of what is going on in the stock market, but this will work across all markets. This is a great technique. We have been using this for a long time. It helps you sleep at night. It's a really cool and very easy strategy to follow. So let me walk you through it. So advice that you get in life: don't let a setback pull you down. There's always more good stuff ahead. That's generally true. If you think back, if you've ever had a tough time that were followed by good times, you know what that means. So this is the strategy for making sure this happens. There is always more good stuff ahead, even in a crash. Okay, so step one, never expose more than 5% to 15% of your total portfolio to a setback. And a portfolio can be your career, cash you've set aside, real estate you might own, stocks you might own, bonds you might own, a business you might own that has cash flow. So never expose more than 5 to 10% of the total picture, the portfolio, to a setback. Right now, the stock market, not all markets, the stock market is having a setback, right? So as we go through this, I will explain how we made sure that we were not exposed to more than 15% to a setback. Okay. The other thing is never sell when a market you're invested in crashes. For example, in your career, if you get laid off, right, you can say, because of economic situations, you could say that the job market may have crashed, but it's temporary. You don't walk away from your career just because the economy is slow. You make do, you get through it, collect unemployment for a little while if you have to, and then you get right back into that job market, right? So never sell. Never walk away from a market just because there's a correction in the market, regardless of what the market is. The bond market, the job market, the stock market, the real estate market. Don't walk away, don't sell in a market crash. And this is really key. If the entire market crashes or corrects, the entire market, not just one or two elements of the market, not just one or two stocks, if the entire market crashes or corrects, that means the entire market will recover. Keep that in mind. That is so important right there. When you see the entire market drop, you know the entire market will float back up. Here are some examples. The housing market crashed in 2008 and 2009, right? A lot of people were turned off to the housing market for a few years. It came back big time, right? Because look at where home prices are now. Back in these days, you could not give away homes. In fact, people were trying to give homes back to the bank. Here are the keys. Take my home. Because the value of homes had dropped so much, they were turning them back to the bank, to the lender. The housing market recovered. Look where home prices are now, right? They're really high. Okay, the stock market recovered after the COVID crash. The Dow was at 28,000 in March of 2020. 28,000 before COVID. It dropped 10,000 points when COVID struck. In March of 2020, the Dow had dropped from 28,000 down to 18,000. It recovered to 45,000 as of November 2024, right? The whole market crashed. The whole market came back up in a huge way, just like homes came back, exceeding the prior levels. Stocks did too. So we're currently in a stock market correction. Never sell in a market crash, right? So you hold stocks, they've fallen in value temporarily. They will come back. The whole market corrected, the whole market will recover. So that's why you don't want to sell. So don't sell in a crash. 100% of your assets will recover, right? So when you watch the news and you hear about the market correction, just say to yourself, I didn't sell anything. I haven't lost any money. And we have this kind of behavior. 28,000 dropped to 18,000, and COVID was much worse than where we are now. COVID, the entire economy was purposely shut down. That's not the case right now. Right now, there is a temporary issue with tariffs in the world economy and negotiations that are about to commence between the countries, and the market will recover. Okay, so step two. Okay, so never expose more than 5 to 15% to a setback. So step two plays into this because you don't want to concentrate your total portfolio into one area. And a lot of people, when this comes up and we mention this, people say, yes, but Warren Buffett has a concentrated portfolio. Why can't we? Well, Buffett has an insurance business, a pretty extensive insurance business. And 20% of all the money he collects from that insurance business, you know, the premiums that you pay for your house insurance, for your car insurance, medical insurance, 20% of all that cash he gets to keep for his own, for himself. He can have a concentrated portfolio. Number one, he doesn't have to sell any of his stocks when there's a market drop. And he's got a huge pile of money coming in every year from his insurance businesses. So most of us don't have an insurance company, right? So don't concentrate your portfolio. You don't want to have everything on one stock or even all in the stock market. You should divide your total portfolio across several assets. This reflects what we do. A market ETF, like SPY or QQQ. That's more than one stock. Those ETFs have a bunch of stocks in them representing the market. The QQQ, in this case, that is the NASDAQ 100. SPY is the Standard & Poor's 500. This is more stocks than this one, but in general, it's much more than a single stock. So you divide a portion of your portfolio into a market ETF and real estate and bonds and your cash flowing business, if you have one, or your career. So for bonds, you can buy U.S. Treasuries. You can buy those through an online broker. And you can also consult treasurydirect.gov for information about U.S. Treasuries. These are the safest bonds on the planet. So we've got a certain portfolio, maybe $10,000, divided into an ETF, a portion in real estate if we can afford it, bonds, U.S. Treasuries, and either your career or cash flowing needs-based business. Now, a needs-based business, this is a recurring theme in my videos. I always talk about if you're going to be in business, make sure it is a need, something that people will keep buying even in an economic slowdown. Gasoline, food, haircuts, etc. Some businesses are wants. They're not a need, they're a want. Like an ice cream parlor, right? Something like that. Something that even restaurants, people, food is a need, but that comes from the grocery store. Restaurants are more of a want, right? Okay, so don't sell anything. The market will recover. If you take nothing else away from this video except that, don't sell anything. The market will recover. Again, back before COVID hit, the Dow was at 28,000. When March 2020 rolled around and COVID hit and they shut down the economy in the whole country, basically, the Dow dropped 10,000 points to 18,000. If you did not sell, not only did you go back up to 28,000, it reached 45,000 in November of 2024. So don't sell anything, the market will recover. That's also true of the housing market. The bond market it goes up and down small amounts, right? For example, right now, all over the world, people are buying U.S. Treasuries for safety. It's called a flight to safety because U.S. Treasury bonds are secure. They're a very safe investment. And so, yes, the price of the bonds go up a little bit and the yield drops a little bit, but in general, much less volatile than stocks. But, okay, so number 4, do not use leverage. Do not borrow. For real estate, it's hard to get away from, it's hard to get away from having leverage if you own real estate. However, that being said, it's a good idea to set a goal to have zero leverage, zero mortgages on your real estate at some point in the future. It's a really good goal to have. Do not use leverage to buy stocks. Never. It's just not worth it. And here's why. In a market correction, if you buy stocks on leverage, you'll get a margin call. If you don't know what a margin call is, I would highly recommend you look up a margin call, M-A-R-G-I-N, margin call. When you borrow money from your broker to buy stocks and the whole market crashes, not only do you lose the stock, you lose, you do get a chance to give the broker more money if you want to hold on to the stock. But in general, you do not want to use margin loans to buy stocks. And you should pay off your credit cards monthly. If you use your credit card for something, make sure you can pay it off at the end of the month. If you can't afford to pay off the item at the end of the month, don't buy it. And then Step 5, have 6 months to 2 years of cash reserves. People say 2 years is a long time. Right, but in COVID days, in some parts of the country, California was one example. They kept that economy shut down for a long time. 2 years of cash reserves would have allowed you to sleep at night. In other parts of the country, 6 months might have been enough, but you get the idea. You want to have cash reserves. It's worth sacrificing some things while you're saving up your cash reserve. For COVID, I really recommend 2 years because you never know. 2 years should get you through almost anything. And then the other issue here, item 6, is to keep an eye out for a market recovery and then buy. So here's what I mean. Right now, if you look at the stock market, it's not clear that the market has fallen all the way and will start recovering. It's not clear that the bottom is in, as they say. It's not clear that it's possible there will be more selling, right? So this would not be a good time to buy. So what smart people do is, number one, they wait until everyone is complaining about that particular market, whether it was the real estate market in 2008 and 2009, or the stock market when COVID hit. Listen for people to be fed up with that particular market, and then start watching that market. When it starts creeping back up, you should create a list of things you might buy because the bottom is in at that point. We're not there yet because the correction just started, basically. We're going to have to wait for people to be really fed up with the stock market and then start paying attention to it and see if it starts creeping back up. This could take a while, and I would say at least wait until everything about this tariff issue is worked out. I would say as long as they're talking about tariffs and there are still negotiations about tariffs between countries, stay out of the market. Just keep some dry powder. Keep your powder dry. Don't sell anything, but just wait until if you probably should not buy anything at this time. Wait until the tariff issue is worked out. So basically what we have done is when a correction hits, like in COVID, this is what we did. We waited for people to be fed up with that market, the stock market, when COVID hit. That was step 1. Step 2, we waited for the market to start inching back up. And we waited 2 or 3 months. Maybe it was like 4 months. We wanted to see a sure sign there would not be a reversal. And then we bought. So we bought below 28,000. The market hit 45,000 in November 2024. So that's what you do. Number 1, you don't sell. Number 2, you watch the market, watch for the bottom. When the bottom is in and it starts creeping back up, and it has been creeping up for a while, a few months, that's a good sign that it's safe to start buying. It's hard to catch the very top and the very bottom of a market. Some people want to try to optimize it and buy it at the bottom. But if you wait until you see signs that the market is going back up, that people are starting to buy, then you can sleep well at night that it's not going to crash again to a even lower level. So people make money in down markets, but not the very bottom. You can't catch the very bottom or the very top. It's pretty rare that people are able to do that. So it's much safer to wait until you know the bottom has been established and people are starting to buy in that market again. The same was true with the real estate market in 2008 and 2009. So the key part of this, though, is never sell in a market crash. And the 5 to 15%, here's what I mean by that. If you divide your portfolio across several assets, let's say that you had 30% of your entire portfolio in the stock market, in an ETF, right? Let's say 30% of your total wealth was in stocks in an ETF, say, in the stock market. Let's say that the market corrects 50%, 50%. It drops by half. That's a huge drop. It hasn't dropped that much, but let's just say that it did. Half of 30%, if you have 30% in stocks and it falls by half, you've only lost 15%, on paper anyways, of your total portfolio. And because you're not selling, you don't lose anything, right? So if you put yourself in a position where you have to sell, either because you need to pay rent or because you bought stocks on margin, that is a huge mistake. You need to have some discipline about spending and develop some cash reserves so you're not forced to sell anything you own just to be able to pay rent or mortgage or something. So just food for thought. I don't want to lecture anyone, but just, food for thought. try to work up to a substantial, I would say 2 years of cash reserves. It's a very worthy goal. You'll be able to sleep well when there's a correction in one market that you're invested in. But if you're invested across several different markets and only one of them is in turmoil and you're not selling anything, there's no problem, right? There's no issue. You're going to be fine. It's just a waiting game. Because when during the COVID crisis, everybody freaked out, right? Remember when people were freaking out about stocks in COVID when the market just tanked? It came back, it almost doubled, right? It came back to 45,000 just a few years later, 3.5 years later. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions about this, this is kind of a religious discipline that we follow. Pretty much everything that we do so that we can sleep well if there's a correction in one of these markets, because we never put everything in one asset class. You can post questions in the comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And I really want to thank everyone for watching, and have a great day.